on the podcast here going to be called Awkward Shit to Ask to Break the Ice. And Dillon Brown is going to be the inaugural guinea pig for the game. So if you don't mind, 10 questions. Don't think about it. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. Good?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yep.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Wings, boneless or bone in?
Bone in, because it's not a wing if it doesn't have a bone.
Correct. Freddy or Jason?
Freddy. It pains me to say this. You do have to understand this. It really does, because I love them both. But Freddy, he just says funny shit.
Yep. I think that's what takes the cake for me too, because Freddy's they're both gonna kill you, regardless. Oh, yeah. They're both gonna fuck you up, but Freddy's gonna make you laugh before he does it.
He has a personality. You know?
Yes, he has a personality. All right, Metallica or Megadeth?
Metallica, but not anything recent. Let's just say that.
Their new stuff isn't bad. I
didn't listen to the new album.
The 72 hours, I don't know what it's called, but yeah, it's 72 something. It's pretty good.
Okay, haven't listened to that.
Yeah. Do aliens exist?
Yes.
Okay. Dog or cat?
Neither. I'm a reptile guy.
Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person. By force.
Fair enough. Xbox or PlayStation?
Xbox.
Ooh. Lost Boys or Near Dark?
The Lost Boys, but Near Dark is so freaking amazing.
All right. And lastly, if you're given a $10 million budget and one A-list actor to work with, who is it and what film are you making?
Okay. It's going to be like a scaled down Jurassic Park set story. I love Jurassic Park, as you can see everywhere back here. But like really scary, horror themed, and I'm just bringing in Jeff Goldblum. Ian Malcolm himself.
Yep. You got to get.
He also seems like a fun guy to like have a beer with or something, because that guy's been in like so many of my favorite movies, and he's got such kind of like a range, you know. It's like he goes from The Fly, you know, to like straight comedy stuff, and he's all over it. I don't know, there's something about Goldblum's delivery. He's so fun to watch.
He really is, and you're right. He's been in so many films, all the way back to Earth Girls Are Easy.
Yeah.
That old cheesy 80s. Man, that movie was so corny, but I love it. I haven't seen it in years, but it used to come on TV like all the time back when, cable was a thing. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was Damon Wayans, Jim Carrey, and Jeff Goldblum, I think, were some.
Yeah.
They're all three playing they're like aliens or something. It was the cheesiest movie, but yeah, just kind of an example of Goldblum's range, because he goes from that to, well, I think The Fly was before that, but then the Jurassic Park, and now he's doing his commercials. I like his commercials, the Apartments or whatever.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. So that's a good pick, man. And that's a solid pick. You're obviously a Jurassic Park fan, so a horror version of Jurassic Park with Ian Malcolm himself is what you're doing with 10 Milli and the A-lister.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, and you didn't have to think about that for very long either, so that's a genuine answer right there.
Well, I mean, like, I got Jurassic Park tats on my arm, and I mean, I'm a diehard man, so.
Yeah, it shows. It definitely shows, and it's a good franchise. It's a really good franchise. Okay, so going back to some of these other questions now we'll kind of dig into a couple of them.
Okay.
You're absolutely right about the wings. It's not a wing; it's a chicken nugget if it doesn't have a bone.
Yeah, like I'll eat them. Don't get me wrong, I'll eat them, but I'm not gonna go order
them. Not going to B-dubs and getting the boneless.
No.
Okay, so this one, it pains you, Freddy or Jason. You went with Freddy. I agree. I'm going to pick Freddy because of his personality. Freddy versus Jason, Part 2. Would you watch it?
Yes, I've been wanting that. In fact, I remember there was a scrapped, I don't know if the original or if it was a scrapped sequel idea that was supposed to be Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. And they were going to bring in
I heard that.
Ashley Williams from The Evil Dead, and it was essentially going to be that tie-in to Jason Goes to Hell, because in Jason Goes to Hell at the end, when the Freddy glove comes out, you know, all that, in that movie, they have the Necronomicon. And if you look at the Necronomicon book, it's the exact one. It's the same prop from The Evil Dead. So there was this theory that that Jason came back from hell as a Deadite, and that Freddy was always a Deadite. And it makes sense because Deadites are smartasses, and the makeup's kind of close. And I'm like, holy shit, Freddy Krueger could totally be a Deadite.
He could, yeah.
And so if they had brought those together, and I could have watched Jason and Freddy and freaking Bruce Campbell come in with chainsaw hand and whip ass for 2 hours, literally the theater would, I think, explode from the amount of excitement that I would take in there. It'd be like a nuclear meltdown. I don't even know. I'd be breathing so heavy I'd probably fog up the whole freaking place.
Well, I'd be right there with you because, yep, I want that. I want that to be made. I really want that to be made. And so many people shit on remakes, and I personally don't. I don't agree with most of the opinions. I love a remake. Like, fucking remake all the movies. I don't care. You know, remake every single, almost every movie is a remake anyway.
People always act like it somehow like takes the original away, you know, and it's like they remade The Fog, which to me, I'm like, I'm not going to watch it because I think that Carpenter's The Fog is like, I actually have a really probably unpopular opinion with Carpenter's movies because I'm a gigantic John Carpenter fan, but I actually hold The Fog probably up higher than most people do. It's like, I actually would watch The Fog over Halloween, which is probably sacrilegious to a lot of people, but it's a more exciting movie to me. And the idea of like fucking ghost pirates with leprosy is amazing to me. It's an incredible story. And so when I knew they were remaking The Fog, I'm like, oh, and it's going to be PG-13. I'm like, well, okay, I'm not going to watch it, but I wasn't like dissuading people from going, and I wasn't telling everybody like, oh, boo these people for making the movie. I mean, I personally look at remakes as not oh, we want to try and do better. I feel like it's somebody who's a massive fan and they're getting a chance. Somebody greenlit the script and they've got money and they're getting a chance to pay homage to their favorite thing. And so,
yep.
Like I say, I may personally not support it or go watch it, but people will flip out over remakes as if like you're, you know, killing their grandmother in front of them or something. It's just like, calm down. Your original is there. It's intact. Nothing is
still
happening.
there. Yeah, you can still watch it. It's not going away. They didn't cancel it. I promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
No. And I think my take on it, and I've mentioned this in a previous episode of the podcast, I think, but my take on it is if I really liked the original, like with Jurassic Park, we were talking about a little bit ago that my fucking phone didn't record, but a remake to me, if I enjoyed the original, if they remake it and I'm an adult, it's almost like getting that feeling of seeing it for the first time again.
Yeah. If they, since we were, like you had said earlier before the technical difficulties, we were talking about Jurassic World. If they had just titled that Jurassic Park 2016 or whatever, and it had been marketed as a remake, right? If they said, hey, we're remaking Jurassic Park for a new generation and it has Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard and it's just called Jurassic Park, and then we got the same movie we got, I would have liked it because it's at the park. This time we get to see a functioning park, but it's the same premise. Dinosaurs get out. It's science gone wrong. It's a fun, exciting movie. I would not have been mad. I would not have been like, oh, this is such a disservice to, Spielberg's work. And it doesn't do anything to the original to me to remake anything. No. I actually find shitty sequels to be more offensive to an original movie than a remake. Because a shitty sequel is trying to literally be in that universe. It's trying to be a continuation of that story. That's to me what hurts. So like Jaws the Revenge is a bigger slap in the face to me than if somebody were to go remake Jaws.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Now, and I think with some of the classics, I can kind of agree with some of the fans that yes, it probably won't be as good as the original because
Yeah.
it's a classic. You're more than likely not ever going to beat a classic,
Yeah.
but
Agreed.
it can still be a very good movie. Like Nightmare on Elm Street is actually probably, I don't know if I want to call it my favorite, in the horror universe, but I mean, it's up there. It's way up there. And when they remade it in 2010 or whatever they did with Jackie Earle Haley, was it a good movie? Not really. But did I watch it? Yeah, I watched it and I enjoyed it. I wish they had done something a little different, which I mean they did do something different, but I wish they had done it differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like how they went to the kind of the origin story of Freddy Krueger. I like how they incorporated that. And they had a lot of famous people in that movie. I didn't really know it at the time, but now going back and watching, it's like, holy shit, Kyle Gallner, Mara Rooney or whatever her name is, freaking, what's the guy's name? Clancy Brown. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of famous people in that movie. So it's not like it's just some cheap bullshit. You know, Nobody came out and said, "I'm going to remake Freddy." I thought that they did a very good job. It kind of fell flat for me a little bit, but with all the new rumors going around, I'm sure you've seen it. They're talking about what's his name, the Midnight Mass guy,
Mike
making
Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan. There we go. I'm terrible with names. I know there's shit, but I can't think of their name. But yeah, they're talking about him making one, and I'm telling you right now, I'm in. Like,
Yeah.
and if they get Kevin Bacon to do it, fuck yeah, I'm in. Like,
Oh, that was so. When I saw that rumor going around, I thought, man, if there is anybody right now, especially when you look at Kevin Bacon since he's gotten older, um, he could pull it off. He could actually be very scary as a Freddy Krueger. And it's like Robert Englund will always be the icon, but those guys get tired. It's just like why Bruce Campbell hung up the Ash, things. He's not going to do that anymore. He got to finish his storyline by doing Ash versus the Evil Dead, the show on Stars, and they got 3 seasons, which is fucking incredible anyway to get 3 seasons greenlit of an Evil Dead television show that was big budget. Every episode is a banger. It's a great story all the way through. It gives that final closure that we never really got after Army of Darkness, and we get the whole thing. But they straight up trolled us too. And I'm not going to say the ending in case anybody hasn't seen it, but it's so funny that there was a specific ending in Army of Darkness that all these people were kind of mad about because they felt like there was this cliffhanger. Then the ending was reworked for so there was an original theatrical ending, then there was a reworked ending for an at-home version where Ash is back in S-Mart and he fights the she bitch and he's got the gun or whatever. But in the original one, he goes like way into the future and he wakes up and he's like, and he freaks out because he had messed up the spell to get back from the ancient times from Army of Darkness. That ending was in the theatrical version, but it didn't test well anyway. You can find it on what's the bootleg cut, which is great. I actually own both versions, but that bootleg cut is awesome. It has a couple of different scenes in it. But anyway, the show says, we're promising some closure due to some things with our original ending and blah blah blah. And what Sam Raimi did through 3 seasons to give us the ending they did, I was like, oh, he gave us closure, but he also just trolled the shit out of the audience, and it was such a perfect move for how those movies work. And so yeah, but I also get that Bruce Campbell, he wants to show he can do more than that, and I think his whole thing was I'm tired. I've spent 30 plus years doing this, and it's just like Robert Englund. He's been doing this since the early 80s, and I completely respect that he doesn't want to come back, and play Freddy anymore.
yeah.
And so if somebody does want to do another one, and they'd have to bring somebody else in, like you said, more power to him. I was actually really excited for Jackie Earle Haley to get the job because, dude, that guy in The Watchmen, as like Rorschach was freaking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that acting that he pulled off in that movie is so good. Uh, and yeah, like you said, I didn't even some of those names I didn't forgot were in that Nightmare on Elm Street remake. So yeah, do I like the movie? No, not particularly, but I see so many people freak out online when anybody brings that movie up, and whatever. It was an attempt. I didn't really like it, but it doesn't have to be on my movie shelf. You know,
Right.
just because it was made does not mean I have to watch it. It has
Right.
to be there.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be your favorite. You don't have to love it. But well, and another thing too, I don't think a lot of people take into account when they get on there and trash and oh, Robert Englund's the only Freddy. Okay, there's a small point you have there, but you also have to remember the man is 75 years old. Like
Yeah,
he's not going to play Freddy anymore. Even if he wanted to, I think he did an interview one time and I read he was saying even if he wanted to, like he can't do the fight scenes anymore. You know, there's that's a physical role. I don't think people actually remember or realize. Number one, there's like 9 Freddy movies, and in each and every single one, he's doing kung fu and shit. You know, he's jumping off walls. There's fight scenes in every single one, and you gotta remember the man was in his 30s and 40s when these movies were coming out, and
yeah,
he's I don't know if he's 75, but he's in his 70s. I think he is 75, but either way. For a man in his 70s to come back and play in a role like that, you can't logically expect somebody to do that, even if he's in phenomenal shape. I I wouldn't expect. Of course, I would love it. Fuck yeah, I'd love it. But I don't see it happening. I really don't.
yeah. You know, and then it's like all the makeup applications and things too that would have
Yes,
to go
hours.
into play. It's exactly right, and um, so yeah, it's like at some point fans have to relinquish that whole gatekeeping mentality that so many of them have because it's like those movies are getting older and older and older every year, and at some point a new generation is going to say, hey, we love that story, let's upgrade it for our generation. Because I think about a Freddy Krueger movie now. um, I've been One of the funniest things for me is the obsession with ASMR. Right, people get on and they follow these hot chicks that eat pickles and shit and make noises, and I can fall asleep to the sounds. It's so nice. But like, imagine a Freddy Krueger ASMR video where he's like looking like Bob Ross and he's painting a picture, and he turns back. And I mean, I'm just thinking of like all the funny things that would fit with cell phone usage now, and people using white noise to sleep, and just different things. They need to be upgraded. And so I don't have this whole like, well, it's close to my heart, so how dare you take it into your own direction. And so when those things are going to happen, of course they have to upgrade the actors, and there'll be new directors. And I think if Mike Flanagan wanted to do one, Wes Craven would be thrilled with Mike Flanagan doing it, because I have one of the things that Midnight Mass, to me, is probably the greatest horror television show I've ever watched. That entire season. It moved me um, on like a philosophical level, on an existential level, and then it has some very scary stuff in it, and it's just a flat out, unbelievably well thought out story.
Hmm.
Um, and I was thinking the whole time watching it, I'm like, man, I wonder what other directors who watch this would think. And the first person I thought of would be like Wes Craven. Probably would have gushed over this. I think Wes Craven would have been all over Mike Flanagan, saying like, "You are a freaking genius for what you did,"
Hmm.
um, because it just feels like how Wes's mind works. That
Yep.
something like that could have come from him. So I think Flanagan's a perfect choice. Um, but I just don't know if it'll ever happen. It's like, look at all this shit going on with the Friday the 13th franchise. There's so much stuff going on with legal stuff that I don't know if we'll ever see another Jason movie or not.
Yeah.
Now I know we're getting a television show that is all pre Jason, so it's like Camp Crystal Lake, which I know that anything I believe that Sean Cunningham has the rights to, if I have it right, they can do anything leading up to like before Hockey Mask Jason. Like they can't use that iconic stuff. So I think they can do like Jason Voorhees, but it has to be like Camp Crystal Lake in the '80s stuff. They can't. But that again, that's such a confusing thing for the fans because we don't really even know all of the rights, and what a mess, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that though. By the way, the Camp Crystal Lake show. I really hope that it does get sorted out because yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And what's the other one? The Welcome to Derry, the Pennywise one. That
Oh,
looks
that's right.
yeah, that looks
I forgot about
really
that.
yeah, that looks really good. I don't even know if that one's in production yet. I just
I don't know.
yeah.
Um, I did not like it. Chapter 2. I liked the first. I thought the first chapter was actually really cool. I was like, damn, you know, this Skarsgård was great, and I was really digging pretty much how they set that movie up. The second one to me injected way too much unnecessary humor, and I just I don't know, man. That the second one really didn't. It didn't really do much for me at all.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I wasn't a big fan. Um So moving on from that a little bit, we're going to touch on this one last thing, and then we'll get into Dillon Brown's career. We'll quit nerding out on all the '80s stuff. I'll nerd out on '80s shit all day long, man. Ask Ash Hamilton. That's all we did was just nerd out on that. So the Lost Boys are Near Dark. You said Lost Boys. I'm with you in both things that you said. I'm with you, and I'm picking the Lost Boys over Near Dark. If I only get to keep one of the two movies forever, I'm gonna have to pick the Lost Boys. But you're right. Near Dark is a very amazing movie with the late Bill Paxton.
Oh man, that's a dude that if I could like have some kind of you can bring a celebrity back from the dead or something, like dude, it'd be like no questions. Like bring Wild Bill Paxton back. I just that guy was such a genre staple, and he was in so many of my favorite movies. I mean, Twister, and Aliens, and The Abyss. Or no, sorry, he's not in The Abyss. He's in well, yeah, Near Dark. Um, but he's in Terminator. I mean, like the
Yep,
punk mohawk in Terminator, and
yep,
uh, Michael Biehn is the other guy that I always love in movies. So he's the one from The Abyss.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, Bill Paxton, man, Frailty,
Frailty,
Otis
yeah.
the
With
Axe,
McConaughey, yeah, that was a good movie.
written and directed by Bill Paxton too. You know,
Yeah,
which is incredibly cool. Um, but yeah, so Near Dark, I love the movie. Catherine Bigelow nailed that movie. You can kind of see her like grittiness there that she ended up taking into her war movies and stuff with Hurt Locker and all that. Um, it's a really cool movie. Lance Henriksen is so good. I love the idea of biker vampires, especially like a vampire movie that plays out like a western, you know, almost.
hmm
It's it's got that like really haunting opening too, where it's just kind of the movie just like starts, like it's just like
yeah,
dude gets bit and he's starting to change and he's on the run, you know, and he has no idea how to assimilate with these group of psychopaths, and it's such a cool movie. But The Lost Boys is like nostalgia to the max for me, and I think that's why, because I can rewatch The Lost Boys over and over and over again. Um, I love the idea of punk vampires hanging out by the ocean, picking off tourists. Um, I loved the old man, the grandpa, is hilarious in
he
that
was
movie,
badass. Yeah,
especially since the entire movie's playing out. He moves his family there in with him because mom's gone through a divorce and they're having this fresh start. And he's telling her, you know, let the boys have fun, you know, it's a fun place and blah blah blah. And grandpa's out on dates and he's doing whatever. And after a bunch of freaking people have been killed and they've murdered a bunch of vampires and the house has exploded, Grandpa finally says, you know, the only thing I don't like about this place is all the damn vampires. And I'm like, he's known the entire time and he didn't say shit to anybody.
yeah.
And it's such a funny ass like plot, you know, thing to me. It killed me. Um, but Lost Boys, I think the vampire design was really cool because they kept it classic, but with that like punk vibe with
hmm
mohawks and permed hair and earrings and all that. I thought was just such a really rad thing. Um, And for me, that was like one of my first introductions into horror was watching The Lost Boys. So I watched a lot of horror movies, you know, as a younger kid and stuff with my cousin Matt. He was really the one that I would go to his house and stay the night, and I knew I'd get to watch some cool stuff. I knew I was going to see boobies and hear the F word and stuff that mom and dad probably didn't want me seeing in movies at the time, and I knew Matt was going to have something cool. But I remember The Lost Boys being one of the first ones he ever showed me because he thought it would probably be like the least scary, you know. Um, and I was so hooked on that movie that I think I probably asked him to watch it for months after that. Every time I went over there, I just wanted to watch The Lost Boys. So that's why I chose that one.
Yeah. Hey, man, that's great reasons that you picked that one, and you nailed every single one of them. I think Lost Boys is. I think
Um,
the story's
it's
better than the Lost Boys, and it's a more fun movie all around for all of the reasons that you said. It's a bunch of punk vampires hanging out waiting to pick off tourists. Where Near Dark, equally as good of a movie, equally as entertaining on every level. But Near Dark, I think, is just more. I mean, it says it in the name of the movie, Dark. It's a more dark movie. I think it's a lot more sinister. It's a lot more gritty. It's more bloody. I mean, it's kind of the definition of a vampire horror movie. It's just
yeah, absolutely.
it's a bloody mess, and it's just a good vampire movie. Whereas The Lost Boys, it it is. It's kind of a more introductory horror movie. Yes, it's got some gory shit in it, and yes, there's a lot of really scary horror elements in it. When he's eating the rice, you don't like rice, and then it's fucking maggots. Like that
Yeah,
tripped me out as a kid because much the same as you, it wasn't my cousin, it was my uncles, and I didn't have a choice. I was watching horror movies. If I wanted to watch TV, I was watching fucking horror movies. So I think that's why Nightmare on Elm Street holds such a special place in my heart because that was my first of all the
yeah.
horror movies. That was my first introduction is fucking Freddy Krueger. As like a 4-year-old kid, I'm watching Freddy just yeah. So traumatized is a nice way to put it. Um, Introductory horror movie, Lost Boys. I think it is. It's got all the nostalgia. So okay, so that was the awkward shit to ask, and I agree with you on almost all of them, except there's a couple that I don't quite agree on, but that's okay. That's okay. We can disagree on the Metallica or Megadeth. I'm gonna pick Megadeth myself. I love Metallica, but I'm gonna pick Megadeth myself. And I've had Xbox and PlayStation. I don't play video games a lot, but when I
I
do,
don't either.
yeah,
I don't play at all. I literally have one so I can play DVDs in it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the only,
I
that's
don't
the
I
only
don't think
reason I say Xbox.
I sold my Xbox recently. That's how often I played it because I had an Xbox, but I prefer PlayStation. Um so we'll get into we kind of briefly got into how you started with your short films. You made the Tremors fan film. Move right into the start of your feature film career, The Devil's Children. I know you and I have kind of talked in private about it. Much like a lot of people's first films, it's not the one that you're the most proud of. I actually really liked it. I thought it was really. I didn't even know it was your first film at the time, um, and it didn't feel like a first film when I first watched it. I mean, it obviously felt low budget like we do. I could feel that vibe, but everything from the intro credits with the fire part falling down, to me, it felt very professional when I was watching it. It did not seem like a first film. I enjoyed The Devil's Children, the whole, the Flock Ghost universe. What kind of got you to go into that universe, the Ghost Flock universe? What inspired that?
I didn't even intentionally do that, right? It was one of those things where The Flock was the movie I actually set out to make, but I had to make The Devil's Children in its place because COVID screwed a lot of stuff up. I'm looking at the script I had for The Flock, and I'm like, bro, you are not equipped to do this at all. And there was a section from the script I cut out that was the party sequence. That's pretty much the house party from The Devil's Children, where they're messing around and they conjure spirits or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I don't need this. I could just kind of gloss over it and just have this kid get abducted from a party by these Satanists, and then the movie can go from there. But I had this chunk I'd cut out, and I was like, well, maybe since I'm trying to get started, I could film this chunk as its own story. And so that's kind of where the Devil's Children came from. So I made it. Yeah, not my favorite thing. Um, it's rough, but like you said, everybody's got to start somewhere. So whatever. Um, so I get through that one, and I immediately want redemption, and I have a little more money, and I got the experience. So I'm like, I'm gonna finally tell my story that I wanted to do, the flock. So then I get into that movie, and the mercenary characters in the flock were a tiny, tiny little part, right? Really, really small. But then Michael Rock and I became really good friends while shooting the movie, and so suddenly it was like I was finding ways to expand on those characters a little more, and they were so much fun to work with that I was like, oh boy, these guys are going to take over the movie here before I know it. So then Mike and I we finished the flock, and Mike and I are really good friends, and we go and we do Tahoe Joe together. And so as we're working on Tahoe Joe, I sort of pitched the idea to him like, hey, would you be down to maybe go back to that flock universe and be your character of Ghost again? Because I wanted Ghost to have his own story. I just liked the idea of the Burks. It was super fun. And so I basically derived a story that would bring back Michael's character from the flock, because you do see him get stabbed or whatever, but you never really see a definitive thing. And I'm doing odes to the '80s movies, right? You always
Mhm.
bring back people from the dead.
Mhm.
And so I basically retconned it all, and I brought Trinity back. And so we brought that girl in, and we said, well, we never saw what happened to Trinity in the flock either. So let's have Trinity rescue Ghost, and then give Ghost his own story and spin it off. So it was never like the plan to do that. It just sort of happened organically as I was making relationships with friends and stuff while making the movies. And I love the Ghost universe. It's super fun, but I also want to take some time before I go back to that one. We're probably going to do like one more story in that universe to fully close it out. And I've already got a pretty interesting story that we've been working on, but I want to step away from it for a little while, because it's like 2020 I did Devil's Children, 2021 I did The Flock, 2022 I started Ghost and finished it in 2023. So I need some time in between to get away from that a little bit. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much how that started.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I only asked because it's going for I'm obviously a huge fan of your movies. Before we ever actually started, talking and things, I had seen Tahoe Joe first, and then I was like, oh, he's got these other movies. It's such a different. I mean, you have a pretty obvious filming style as far as your cinematography is concerned, but the way you filmed like the Flock universe versus how you approach Tahoe Joe, is to me it felt a little bit different. I mean, obviously it's a different movie. It's a mockumentary versus which I know Ghost is. You mentioned it's kind of a mockumentary, but it's also a big '80s cheese fest.
Yeah.
Um, you have a very unique way of filming, and I love it. And I know that you have teamed up with Ash Hamilton. And you've got a segment coming out for his anthology, Effed Tales from the End Times. I've been privy to see, parts of that, and I thought it was fucking great. But so much different, than the Flock. And I won't go into details, obviously, because the thing's not out. But so much different. What I guess what I'm trying to get at is what's if you had to say you had a preference, do you prefer the more dirty, just bloody mess, found footage horror, or would you prefer to actually sit and have a thought out writing session for months and, make a really detailed script and actually go in to, try and make a really well written story into a movie, or are you kind of like me where you just kind of want blood everywhere?
Um, really, it's kind of just depends on what I'm in the mood for. Like, honestly, if I had the chance to make a super bloody gory movie and I had an amazing makeup team like at the ready, then yeah, let's go do it, and it might be fun. But the other side of me says, like the Tahoe Joe stuff was fun because it was really all mystery and story based
Mhm.
until our ending and stuff. So it's really just, I think it just depends on the story. I think usually I let the story sort of tell me what I'm going to do and what I need. Tahoe Joe never felt like it was ever going to need to go into a crazy violent direction, right?
Right.
I never had the desire to do it with that one because it just felt like it didn't need to. Ghost, we wanted to have this fun kind of 80s homage, so it's got like a 30 plus person body count. Like I wanted to have the shootout, so a lot of people dying, and so yeah, it's I think the story just dictates where it goes sometimes. I don't necessarily even know that I'm in control of that. I think if I feel like visually the movie needs our arm ripped off, then we'll do it. But if I feel like we can get around that because we don't really need it, then I won't film it either.
Yeah.
It's like this. Uh, been filming a secret project that I haven't said anything to anybody about publicly. I know you know about it, but that particular story that I can't give details on, but that one, it's pretty much devoid of any blood. We went for a different kinds of scares, and I still got to do stuff that I love to do, um, but we didn't go with any gore like at all in it, and it's just. I think it just depends on the story and if it really needs it or not. Like I watched your recent short, of which we won't talk about plot wise or anything, but obviously blood was needed and you used it really, really well and very effectively. Um, so yeah, I think it's just kind of whatever's needed at the time.
Kind of. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's why I was curious because when we first met and I asked you, when I was making the spoken, which we won't speak about, but when I was making that thing, you gave me a pretty solid piece of advice that I'll never forget. And you said just write for what for what you can do. Basically,
Yeah.
you said just don't try to, like, if you can't blow up a school bus, don't write it in the script.
Yeah.
Plan for what you can do. And I've always kind of taken that into heart. So that's why I was just kind of curious if obviously Tahoe Joe was planned. It wasn't just like a spur of the moment thing, and it shows because the fucking thing blew up for you. It's way up there with a lot of the heavyweight Bigfoot movies.
I know. I never expected that, but
Never
it seems
expected
like
that.
people talk about Bigfoot movies in these movie groups and the found footage, world and all that. And it's like we're always listed up there with this and Willow Creek and I'm just and Lost Coast tapes or whatever that one is. And I just never would have thought that. And so to me, we made a little $800 movie that's being you know, put up there with those heavyweights is incredible. And yeah, Tahoe Joe was a very long gestating idea. It's something I'd had for a long time, didn't know how to approach it, and then when Mike and I became friends, and it became almost like natural to ask him to be into it. Um, we changed the approach a little bit, and I didn't have a bunch of fake characters. I decided let's just roll with us instead. Um, Ended up being the best decision I ever made because it was so much more fun to just play off our natural friendship and it works. I mean, even in Ghost, I think my character Monk doesn't even have any lines, but there's still that chemistry between Mike and Dillon. I think that's pretty evident in Ghost. Um, but Tahoe Joe 2 is going to push that even further because we've had so much more time to become friends and like brothers and homies now. And Tahoe Joe 2 will up the carnage, it'll up the scares, up the monster stuff, but it's also going to still stay very organic to
Yeah.
us, and it's going to feel like it belongs um, in this kind of grounded reality too. Because we have to. I feel like anything getting away from that's just doing a disservice to the story that we're telling in that one. Ghost was our universe where we can go ballistic and silly with things and have cheesiness, But Tahoe Joe, we definitely want to maintain that level of seriousness when needed, but also Tahoe Joe has a lot of funny. I don't think people were expecting how much humor is actually in that movie too,
Hmm.
and that's that natural thing that friends do, when you're together. So that'll be in there too as well, and especially since Hunter Nino is joining the cast for Tahoe Joe too, which is amazing. and then Josh Brucker's going to be here too on set, kind of doing some AD stuff for me. So I think it's really going to pick up friendship wise that one when we're all working together, because now the horror dads will finally all be in one place together. We haven't been in the past; it's all been virtually. So getting us together on a set is going to be a pretty kick-ass time, and I think that again, kind of back to your original question, where the movie goes as far as what we're doing with it, I don't know. I think we'll just sort of let the vibe dictate how it goes, and I don't know if we'll say, you know what, screw it, let's go crazy with the violence in this one. It's a sequel, why not? Or we might say, you know what, man, we don't need to do this. It's actually effective the way it is. Let's just let's keep it. I don't know. It's kind of probably weird for some people who are listening to a director being so indecisive, but I don't make decisions super early on. Without a giant budget, I can't. I have to
Right.
be fluid. I have to be ready to sort of change things as needed.
Yeah.
And I also feel like letting the story grow organically is our appeal too.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think, and I know you got to go, so I'll wrap this up here pretty quick. But
Yeah,
with with letting the movie kind of dictate how it goes, my upcoming Lights Over Montgomery County, which Horror Dads it's a Horror Dads presents. So thank you.
we're
Um,
very happy to have it as well.
well, I'm glad you guys are doing it. That's awesome. But I the movie that it is not the movie that I originally had planned on making. But it was through your help and advice and Josh Brucker's help and advice, which I know I mentioned it in private, but I'm going to throw it out there to everyone. Josh Brucker is a fucking genius. For He added a last minute touch that I'm not going to say what it is, but it's an entirely different movie now than what it was. I knew what I had envisioned the whole time, but it just took those extra sets of eyes to bring it out of me, because I'm still so new. Like, you started on this a few years back, but you kind of got your real start in it going into COVID and things. So
Yeah,
I'm still I'm still wearing diapers. I'm brand new to this, and I'm learning a lot, and it's 100% thanks to you. A lot of support from Ash Hamilton, Josh Brucker, Hunter Nino, Michael Rock. He's a fucking stud. Like, all the horror dads. Like, you guys have an amazing thing going, and it's almost weird to hear you say that you guys have never actually been together. Because
yeah. It's like me and Mike, and then Hunter and Josh, but we haven't got the four of us together yet.
Yeah,
On a single set. So, um, I guess my closing little tease here on the future for the horror dads will be that Tahoe Joe 2 starts around January, and we'll do that one. And then I am actually going to be taking a pretty good break. I've been very busy with a lot of stuff, so I have this whole secret movie that's going to drop. Tahoe Joe 2 will drop. Josh already has wheels set in motion for the Woodman Part 2. It tested very well with people who have seen the first one, and we all want to see where it goes. Um, but I will be on set for that one with Michael. Like, the four of us will be together on that one to assist Josh on his. So I'm going to take some time off from filming so I can help with that. Um, and also it's like I don't need to be making any more movies right now. I'm going to have the secret one to promote. I'm going to have F Tales from the End Times to promote, and I'm going to have Tahoe Joe 2 to promote. Um, so there'll be plenty of stuff out there for me to be worried about while not making anything new. So
yeah,
I'm going to take a pretty good hiatus next year and just help with some other projects after finishing up Tahoe Joe 2, and then my next film, when I do pick it back up, probably at the end of the year or early 2025, will be something very, very different for me that I've been sitting on for a long time, and I'm ready to tackle it. It's going to be very different than anything I've done before, but it's time to tell that one. I'm confident enough to tackle that story, um, and it's a banger. It's a very story oriented thing, but man, I got a story that I think people are going to be like, holy shit. So
okay,
that's gonna be the one. So we'll go Tahoe Joe 2. Josh will knock out his Woodman Part 2, and then whenever I decide to pick up that next one, I guess that's where we'll go. Horror Dads, though, holy crap, we've got stuff plotted till like 2027. So there will be other things going on too. It's just more producing. for me for a little while. It'll be a little more producer role before I'm gonna jump back into like a full writer director chair.
Yeah. Well, fucking hey, man. Way to leave us on that cliffhanger. Um, I Dude, I really do appreciate your time. And I thank you just for everything since the day we met. We same type of relationship. We haven't met in person. It's all been online. But you've been
One of
just
these days.
yeah. One of these days, I want to try and make my way out to Reno, or hopefully you guys will maybe one day be out towards Texas. Don't come in the summer because it's way too fucking hot. But yeah, man, thank you seriously for everything. You guys have really all helped me a ton, and I look forward to the future of found footage horror and everything with everything you guys are doing. Um, Hopefully one day we can set it up where all the horror dads can come back and come on the podcast. I think that'd be dope.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
so fun.
yeah, that'd be great. So again, man, I won't take up any more of your time. I know you got dad stuff to do now. So thanks again, brother, and I will talk at you later.
All right, Dustin. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Take care.